The story from The Independent. Trump administration mocked for launching woodland camouflage Space Force uniform. How stupid does Trump have to be? He's so dumb. Look at this image from the United States Space Force Twitter account. Can you believe it? How stupid they were to make jungle camouflage for outer space? I mean, think about it. Now when our space soldiers are drifting around without spacesuits in outer space, fighting other space soldiers from other countries, they'll be able to just see them so easily. They're going to be drifting in space, and the Chinese space soldier, who's got his laser gun, is going to look and say, hey, look, that guy's green. And they're going to, and how crazy does Trump have to be? No, let's be real for a second. Oh my God. The left is so stupid on this matter, at least. Okay, fine. I don't want to say the entire left, but oh man, this is one of the most brain-breaking, mind-numbing, idiotic things I have ever seen. On your screen right now is an image of someone wearing a Space Force uniform. Yeah, it looks like jungle or forest terrain camouflage. Yeah. Now, some people, many of you may be thinking, but wouldn't it be space-style camouflage? Now, for those of you that are honestly thinking that, I'm not trying to be mean to stupid people. I'm not trying to call you stupid, but I'm not trying to be mean. Listen, do people in is the Air Force uniform blue with white puffs on it? No, the Air Force wears camouflage too. You know why? Because the Air Force isn't in the air. It's on the ground. I know many people say, yeah, but the Navy wears blue and they're in the ocean. They actually got rid of that. That's my understanding. They got rid of it. I want to spend this segment showing you just how dumb people are. Because you know what, man? This is a really great example of what's wrong with politics. All of these people, even Smash Mouth, right? The band Smash Mouth tweets, shouldn't they be having like space camouflage? Yes, because the U.S. soldiers are going to be adrift in space with no space suit, and they're going to be fighting other space soldiers, and they're all going to have spacey kind of... What? What do they think the Space Force is? They think these people wouldn't be wearing spacesuits, they'd be adrift in space? Like, could you imagine a shuttle launching full of Space Force soldiers, and they're like, here's what we're doing. We're deploying you in U-ships to the shores of space, and then all the soldiers get ejected wearing this camouflage and then just immediately suffocate. Is that what they think? Listen, even if they were going to be in space, who cares what their outer uniform is? They have to put on a spacesuit. What's wrong with people? More importantly, Space Command is doing like space technology ground support. So there's so many funny tweets. Let me read you this story. And then I just want to tear some people up. You know what I mean? I try not to be mean, but The Independent writes, the Trump administration has been roundly mocked after launching an official woodland camouflage Space Force uniform. Critics questioned why there was a need for the camouflage pattern in space and drew attention to the fact that there are no trees to blend in with outside of planet Earth. And why would the Air Force have green camouflage? Are they trying to blend in with trees in the sky? Do you know how many pilots there are relative to like the full force, like the full Air Force? Most people in the Air Force are not pilots, and they aren't floating around in the sky shooting at each other. Okay, listen. You know why we have camouflage? In combat, you can't, it's hard to see you. You know what I mean? So it's cheaper to make the uniforms essentially earth terrain combat ready. Everybody kind of wears it. Could you imagine somebody? So people keep posting these images of like, actually, maybe I can pull some up. Do I have check this out. So look at all these tweets. Let me see if I can find one. One of the most viral is from Aaron Rupar. He says, Trump's Space Force troops wearing camo in space is perhaps the strongest evidence yet that Idiocracy is a documentary. Actually, he's wrong. His tweet is perhaps the strongest evidence that Idiocracy is a documentary. Him literally thinking, look, man, I don't know how to put this. No one's going to be floating around in space wearing camo. Why would you think that? The first thing that is so insanely obvious here is that they just made the Space Force. What do you think? That as soon as they were like, we hereby and are signing the legislation to create a Space Force, and look, we've already hired a seamstress to make a uniform. That's not how it works. First of all, no one's going to appropriate funding for actual Space Force uniforms before the creation of the Space Force. The Space Force just got created. Now they have to do a ton of testing to figure out what works and why. I'll tell you this. People who actually go to space, they're probably just going to wear a blue jumpsuit. Think about this. When you're on the ground in combat and you're wearing desert camo, it's because you're in combat, you don't want them to see you, right? Do they think U.S. Space Force soldiers will be drifting around in space camo fighting enemy troops? It's so insane. I love it, though. I love it. I tweeted in response to Aaron Rupar, does Aaron think that Space Force troops will be wearing cloth uniforms in space, like without a spacesuit? Most will likely operate from Earth. Are Air Force uniforms blue and white? A bunch of people. Why are people so surprised Space Force will be using the same uniforms as any other branch of the armed forces? Would they prefer we spend a couple of $1 million of taxpayer dollars on developing spandex uniforms that look like Star Trek or something? Here's one. U.S. It'd be cool if everyone had affordable health care, so y'all can do that, please. Them. There's no money. Sorry. Also, we made a Space Force to fight aliens. No. I get it. It's a joke. Listen. The budget for the Space Force, I don't know the full budget. I believe it's an increase. But we're actually moving people from the Air Force to the Space Force because the Air Force was the one controlling our space apparatus. We're now going to create a dedicated Space Force. I'm actually excited for that because, moving forward, the Space Force can become something much cooler. Kyle Cassidy asks, shouldn't Space Force camo be black and white with little stars on it? Now, I think this is fair. He's asking a simple question. Kyle, let me tell you, no. First, it is cheaper to just use the uniforms we already have for most people who are going to be on Earth operating in the Space Force. More importantly, if they're doing satellite support or other communication support with space technology, they may actually find themselves in similar combat zones. So if someone, say, in like Iraq, and they're doing satellite support in the Space Force, they're not going to be wearing little space uniforms. Could you imagine that? Like, I'm thinking about all the people who are posting these images of like shirts with galaxies on them and stuff. I want to see a picture of like in the middle of the desert, and it's like, can you find the American Space Force soldiers? And it's just like dead bodies wearing galaxy spandex, and like you can just see them. These people, I'm sorry, dude. I'm going to say it again. I know. But just think about how hilarious it is that when they heard of the Space Force, the first thing that came to their mind is American soldiers drifting around in space, fighting other people drifting around in space. First of all, if you've watched any sci-fi show, we don't have people floating around in space nor in the sky. To an extent we do in the water. We've got like, people who actually, go scuba diving and harpoons and stuff. We have paratroopers, but paratroopers don't wear blue with white puffs on them. I'm just imagining how hilarious it would be if like, we go to war with Russia or something, and then there's like the great space battle where it's literally just a bunch of dudes with like a helmet on with air in it, and they're wearing cloth galaxy colored uniform, like galaxy pattern uniforms, and they're shooting at each other, but every time they fire their gun, they flip around like crazy and spin in random directions because you're in space. That's the first thing they thought of? Like they thought the people would be in space. No, they're going to be in spaceships, if that. And why would you wear a weird galaxy pattern if you were in a spaceship? They can see the spaceship. The spaceship would be colored in a certain way to be harder to see. That makes a lot of sense. A spaceship, that's just black. That would be hard to see. So I also think it's really funny that like in Star Trek, I always thought this was kind of funny. The cloaking devices of the ships, it's like, dude, you could literally just paint the ship black and they're not going to see it. Isn't that funny? Like in Star Trek, I don't know if you watch Star Trek, they have the Klingons and the Romulans have cloaking technology. And part of like a peace agreement between the Klingons and the Federation is the Federation can't do cloaking. Just stop making your ships bright, sparkly lights with white all over them. They actually did this in one of the movies where they actually had one of the Federation ships was just like a big black ship. So you can't really see it moving around in space. I don't know. Look at this. This guy says, people are mocking Pentagon's new Camo Space Force uniforms as if the Battle of Endor never happened. They seriously don't understand anything about the military. They don't get how any of it works. They assume that we're going to spend $1 billion on uniform designs and uniforms right after the whole thing was launched. It's just, you know what, man? Julio Rosa says, Aaron here is demonstrating how, despite describing himself as a journalist, he did zero research into why the Space Force has the current uniform. It also shows he did zero research on how long it takes the DoD to design, test, and approve new uniforms. Hint, a hot minute. But I got a few stories. Check this out. The Navy says goodbye to the blueberry camouflage uniform. This is from Stars and Stripes, stripes.com, and this was back in September. I see a lot of people mocking the Navy for having blue camo because when you fall in the water, how are they going to find you? And you're all in ships for the most part. So they actually got rid of it. They're going to be wearing green in the water. Okay? You know what? These people don't understand that uniforms aren't necessarily about being in combat. It's just a cheaper way to make uniforms. Now, the Air Force, the Army, they have dress uniforms too. But they all wear this because it's just cheaper. What? Like, I don't understand. Like, when I saw this, it was really, really mind-blowing. Look at this. Smash Mouth. So why are the Space Force uniforms camouflage? Shouldn't they be black with white dots? Let's see what people are posting about Space Force for images. Look, here's one with cats on it. Oh, wait. Here's a funny one. Are people making the whatever? So there was a lot of people posting things. I guess, okay, here we go. They're mocking it, saying that people should be wearing, like, galaxy patterned outfits, I guess, with little rocket ships and spacemen on it. I don't know, whatever, man. This whole thing is making me sad. I'm kind of just losing it. Yeah, that's about it. I'm going to leave you with one final thought. I want you to imagine right now a bunch of people drifting around randomly in space. They can't control their motion. They're just drifting, just slowly drifting. And they have little American flag patches, and they're wearing spandex that looks like galaxy patterns, and they're just floating in space. Because apparently the plan for the U.S. Space Force is to load up a bunch of people in Space Force camo that looks like outer space and just eject them into the vacuum of space and let them sort it out for themselves. You know what, man? These people are arguing for policy positions, and this is how they react. As George Carlin said, think about how stupid the average person is. Now realize half of them are stupider than that. I'll see you all in the next segment coming up in a few minutes.